Welcome to Take 5 for Torah. Today is Thursday, August 7th, the 13th of Av, and that means that today we're discussing something about the Torah portion, and there's something amazing about Parshas V'eschanan, which replicates the Decalogue, the Aseret HaDibrot that are mentioned in Parshas Yisro, and the entire Parsha, I will submit to you, is dedicated to relating to the events of the revelation at Sinai and its aftermath. You see, when Moshe didn't show up in time, when the people were expecting him, they thought he was dead. And they needed another conduit to God. Kizem Moshe ha'ish. Moshe, after all, is just a man. One day he's going to die. Let's make something that will connect ourselves to God to an extent where even after Moshe dies, we'll have that thing. And when we look at that thing, we'll always remember the God who took us out of Egypt. Eile Elohecha Yisrael, the Erev Rav, that the Egyptian group that left with the Israelites, they said, Yisrael, these are the gods, Israel, that just took you out of Egypt. They needed something physical, but God didn't like it. God didn't want even for himself to be represented in any way, shape, or form. So with the Egel, it showed that they needed something in the physical realm in the absence of Moshe, and something needed to be corrected. You see, the Gemara says that God had to hold up Mount Sinai above their heads in order for them to accept the Torah. And Tosfos asks, what kind of statement is this? They said, Na'aseh v'nishma. Na'aseh v'nishma will do, but even before we listen. And I think that that's the correction that needs to be made. They made a connection to God at Mount Sinai without thinking. It was an emotional connection because of all the miracles they had seen. That's really the function, says the Bechor Shor, of the mountain held above their heads. They didn't do what the other nations did, which was to ask, what's in it before we accept this Torah? They didn't ask that. How could they ask that? They just had experienced the redemption. They experienced Kriyas Yamsuf, the salvation at the Red Sea. So they didn't ask anything. They didn't make any intellectual connection with what they were about to receive. What happens 13 times in Parshas V'eschanan is the shorish of shama or shamar, to guard or to observe, in the same verse as the shorish of la'asos, to do, and in all 13 times, the shorish of to listen comes first. As if though to correct the mistake they made. It's actually a Tosefta in Meseches Bava Kama that says that it was Gnevas Das. It was like stealing and cheating from God by saying so clearly and so unequivocally, we'll do even before we know what's in it. That would have been fine, but they made an Egel just a few weeks later. Rashi says this in Parshas Hazinu. He says that Dor Lo Emun Bam, they weren't a trustworthy nation. They said Na'aseh v'nishma v'shor kala. In a short time, they made the golden calf. Easy come, easy go. To accept God came easy, and to reject God came easy. So what Parshas V'eschanan is bidding us to do is to make not just an emotional connection to God, but an intellectual connection to God. Love itself needs to be intellectual. That's why the Torah's first word for love is Vayedah Adam es Chava Ishto. Love is not blind. Infatuation is blind. Love needs to be profoundly knowledgeable, profoundly informed. And that's what Parshas V'eschanan wants to do. Inform yourself. Shamar, Shama, come and learn, come and listen before you can commit to doing. And that's why the Rambam in his Mishnah Torah, in his 14 books, the second book is called Ava, indeed, to love. But the first book is called Mada, to know. We have to know before we can love. We have to know before we can commit. I understand why the Jews committed then, because they had been so impressed by all of the miracles they had seen. But they should have done what Parshas V'eschanan corrects in the first place, was to be informed, then connect, okay? And that's how Parshas V'eschanan wants to correct what went wrong originally. Check it out. Look for all these 13 times. And of course, it represents and recollects, it repeats the Decalogue by repeating the Aseret HaDibrot. That is the nature of Parshas V'eschanan.